winners of this contest every year. So you can get published. You can put it on your bookshelf. Send it to your grandma. She'll love you forever. Our next classical concert at the Sage will be on October 6th, and it features Christina Jennings on the flute and our own Susan Ellinger on piano. It is not to be missed. And then on November 10th, we have rebooted our wine auction, and we're doing a European wine tasting and auction this year, which will feature local sommeliers who will teach you how to taste the wines from around Europe. So, and then you can purchase these same wines at the auction later in the day. The next thing is the Space to Create Arts Market Survey. Last year at this time, we were just chosen as a Space to Create town. And we ran our feasibility study, which was looking at, is this going to work around here? Is this not going to work around here? And it's going to work around here. So this time, this survey is for the town to give us input and the surrounding areas as far as 50 miles out, 100 miles out. We want to know what you think we need and what we should build, because we're not going to do anything without what you want us to do. So the survey is online. There's a little card in your program where you can access it. There will be a booth at Mountain Harvest Festival all weekend long. You can come by and take the survey. We're going to have a computer out in the gallery at the Blue Sage. And we really, really need your input so we can make this a successful project. And last but not least, October is membership month at the Blue Sage. If you are not a member, now is the time to sign up. We want you. We love you. Please come be part of us. We cannot do the work we do without you. Just as KVNF is a membership organization, so is the Blue Sage. And we rely on our members to not only give us financial support, but your energy, your enthusiasm, and your ideas. If you see something that you think we could do better, if you think there is something else we can do, we want to hear from you. So we have the many things that we do put on: the concert series, Delta County Reads, the writing workshops, the gallery shows, Paint Paonia, the Convergence Contest, our Arts for All program in the schools with the Learning Council and Mountain Harvest Creative. Creation and Libations is our new Sip and Paint program, which we will be having Sunday afternoons with Shannon Richardson. Harvest of Voices. These are the things that cannot happen and will not happen without your support. So thank you, each and every one of you who is a member and who becomes a member. We love you dearly. So, now, next. Our next reader, you may or may not know, because he's around town. He is in almost every event you see around town, but you don't see him, because he's hiding behind a soundboard most of the time. But tonight, we're bringing him out on center stage. I am proud to introduce Daniel B., otherwise known as Daniel Bibberstaff.
I didn't procure a stool, so I'm going to adjust things here for a moment. What a treat to be a part of this tonight. It's been a while since I've been on the stage. Sure. I literally just broke a string out back, so you're going to get the 5-string rendition, which is somehow probably suitable to the song. I don't really fancy myself a writer necessarily, but then again, I have always written songs and poetry and thought about writing a lot of other things, so great to be here tonight. Thank you for having me. This has always seemed like the beginning of the Harvest Fest. And by all signs, it's going to be a wonderful one. It's beautiful seeing everybody out there. This song is from this summer, musings of fortune and chance. We'll see how the mic does here. The day's work is all done. Soon will come another one. Maybe then the rains will come. A dusty road, a heavy load, and the doubts start trickling in. But our hope is still alive. Believe in something. Believe most of the time. There's a lesson in between the huntsman and the beast. Lady luck, please shine on me. Lady luck, please shine on me. And now our sights are set. There's no time for regrets. What's done is done, and then we move on. And when we reach that spring, the water's cool and shimmering, yeah, just right to cleanse our weary mind. Believe in something. Most of the time, there's a lesson in between the huntsman and the beast. Lady luck, please shine on me. Lady luck, please shine on me. There's a lesson in between the huntsman and the beast. Lady luck, please shine on me. 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 Yeah, thank you so much. Just a one-song introduction tonight. It usually takes me a few songs to not be shaky, but that's what you get tonight, so thank you so much. I'm not sure who's next, but I'll introduce them when I figure it out. Tammy Mack. Got about 400 hertz out of there.
Was that close enough? This is for my dad. The ridiculously long ride. It was 1968. Aspen was still a fairly sleepy town, and Mom told my brother and me to take a powder so she could clean house. My parents moved to Aspen from Montrose with me and my 4 older brothers in '61. Ma Bell laid off Mom and 40 other phone operators in the recession of '60-61, and they'd heard that there were jobs in Aspen. Winter was ski season, the busy season, but the summer was off season, and we jumped on our bikes and headed out for what would be a ridiculously long ride. We were probably headed for the laundromat to look for money under the washing machines until we discovered the old train tracks. The same tracks that carried silver ore down the valley and supplies up before silver prices crashed, and later, after Aspen's quiet years, hauled tourists to the new ski slopes. But the trains had stopped running, and the tracks were all ours. Tim had a Schwinn Stingray, the sports car of bicycles, with high handlebars and a banana seat. I had a Schwinn Pixie. It was too short, and when I pedaled, my knees bent and my legs would stick out to the sides. It was also missing a right pedal. The railroad bed paralleled the Roaring Fork River down to the Slaughterhouse Bridge at McLean Flats Road. Left to town? Right to Woody Creek? We stayed the course, headed down the tracks and into a narrow canyon. To our right, the river, our left, tall cliffs hovering above the tracks, so blackened by years of locomotive soot that we wondered if the train might come at any moment. We followed bend after bend until the tracks stretched out as far as we could see and disappeared into a grove of cottonwoods. We couldn't turn back now. The landscape quickly changed. The river dropped far below into a narrow canyon. Across the canyon, we could see the highway, winding past shale bluffs, the airport, and beyond, nothing but fields and small farms with big red barns. By late afternoon, we hit McLean Flats Road again and coasted down to Woody Creek Bridge. Across the bridge, between us and the highway, stood the steepest, windingest road in the world. That's when I missed my pedal. Tim took off uphill in his Stingray while I pushed hard on one pedal, lurched forward, and stopped. My left foot held the bike while the right foot hooked the crank arm and pushed it down again until I could engage the left pedal again, and I got nowhere. Tim rammed a stick into the crank arm for a pedal, but it broke off with one push. It was hopeless, so we pushed our bikes up the highway as the sun tilted toward the west. Another 7 miles and we went home. Then things started going our way. We found a dime in Shale Bluffs, and just before the airport, we got a ride. We headed straight for the soda fountain and traded our dime for a Coke. Best Coke ever. That's when it hit us. We'd been gone all day, and we didn't tell anyone where we were. We were in for a lickin', as my dad would say. He'd be mad as hell, and you did not want to make our dad mad. We braced for the worst and walked in the door, but no one asked us where we'd been. We weren't going to tell. A lot of years would pass before I realized what a special day that was. We were witnessing the last small town, Aspen. Like the land rush of '89, when our family settled in Nebraska, people flocked from everywhere to the valley looking for a piece of paradise. Aspen got gobbled up. It would be decades before I told my dad about our ride, the missing pedal, the dime, the Coke, even about being scared to go home. We had a good laugh, and he said he'd wished I'd told him sooner because it was a good story. My dad liked a good story. I wish we could go back and take that ride again. But the rails were torn up and the railroad bed is now a bike path. Rumor has it that a solar garden will be planted near that grove of cottonwoods. The highway's more like freeway now, and kids don't take off for the day without checking in on their cell phones. I rarely go home anymore, but when I do, I like to remember that day when summer was off season. Aspen was small town, and my brother and I took a ridiculously long ride. Next up is Bobby Hawes.
Well, this is pretty cool, this many of us showing up to celebrate and support literature. It's kind of special. It's very unique. I don't work a lot in poetry, but I got the idea to write a poem about the moon. because we certainly need another poem about the moon. And then this one kind of took a turn on me. Meanwhile, day 3,365,000 of being great again. In this valley, a rasping and jagged and grating holding on to a crisp and concise and a coordinated way that kills slowly, deliberately, mindlessly all that flows, clutches tightly with talons of patriarchy. We hold to it because it is the religion of our Father, so that makes it the religion of who we are. We hear the scream of childbirth contractions in the night, yet we stoically look away. We sit on the porch in the glow of lit cigarettes, removed from the pain and the miracle of birth as if separation is somehow strength. We have built an edifice on this ideal. Oh my. When the full moon rises tonight up and through the West Elks, we should all be taken, stopped, dropped, opened wide, and astonished, especially here inside this protection and embrace of agriculture, of living goddamn on the land. On the land. On the land is where we began, how we understood, why we withstand. With our grandmothers on the land. Instead, these men smirk at natural rhythms and cling to their uniforms. Their baseball hats and dirty t-shirts, all matching, all the same. Rugged individualists, all the same. Drawn like Miller moths to the testosterone light, never question that being your own man means you always dress the same as every other real man. Got it, Snowflake? Just like in junior high, a guy named Doug with a mustache sneer and a big-ass truck decides who's in and who's out. Say nigger and you're in. Embrace the moon and you're out.
Wow.
Next up is a wonderful writer and everyone's favorite librarian.
Oh, this makes us look glamorous. This is very nice. I guess since Mary told you all about the Blue Sage, I'll tell you something about the library. And it's tomorrow at 2 o'clock, and I'm really festival. We have a wonderful former journalist, Rebecca Claren. She used to work for High Country News, won a bunch of awards. She's a great writer, and she wrote her first novel, and it is wonderful. It is called Kickdown, and it is about a lot of things, but I guess I'd have to say it's also about the dangers of too much industrializing of ranching. So I'm really excited to be here this time. Spain at the Alhambra. So I had the great fortune of going to 5 countries last year and missing Mountain Harvest, and it's great to be back. And I want to thank my benefactress, Rima Dunn. But it meant the world to me. So thanks. All artists need patrons. So I'm going to read just a little tiny scene from the new novel that I'm working on. It's historical and it takes place in those 5 countries. But this is actually what I call a kind of a before-word, because it kind of takes place before most of the story gets going. And it takes place in the Outer Hebrides. It's called, we have a working title, and it's called The Odyssey of Emer McNeill, who is the main character. 'Twas in the year 1570, on the Isle of Barra off the western coast of Scotland, where I first heard the heart of a horse. Though I was only a bairn of 4 winters, as my legs, for I'd not be left at the hearth to play with wool just because I was youngest. Loom had bid my eldest brother and sister to keep me in sight and well away from the waters of loch and bay. But that day, 7 of us cousins scattered, fleeing from the pillar of stone at the base of the hill, all but John Ogg, blindfold over his face because we knew he would cheat and watch where we hid. "Run for your lives!" John Ogg hollered into the gathering mist and howled after us. For in this game, our cousin, firstborn son of the new chosen chieftain of the McNeill clan, was wolf to our lambs. With their longer strides, my twin brothers had already reached one of the last stands of forest remaining on Barra, and their ginger heads disappeared into the trees. Centuries it had been since Viking raiders plundered our western isles for cattle and women, and stripped most of the wood to build more of their dragon ships, leaving us exposed to the Atlantic gales. Yet here old trees grew thick and rife with undergrowth, and as I ran, they took me in, sheltering, with the air so strangely still it felt like the wind held its breath. Then I found what I'd been seeking. Beside a stream, I parted the heather and wiggled into the crevice between boulders. Tucked safe from prying, wolfish eyes, I curled into a ball. I was determined John Ogg would not catch me. He stood twice my size and delighted to snatch butterflies from the air, dropping them to flap broken wings. "Someday," he'd boast, "I'll be the McNeill and you'll have to do everything I say." Much of an age with my eldest brother Cathal, the 2 boys practiced together at sword and axe, though the blades were but wood, my brother stronger, but our cousin quick and sly. When grown, they would likely be warriors together, for the men of Clan McNeill were raiders now themselves. One dawn, I'd watched the leave-taking, black ships with bearded McNeill men at the oars, led by our uncle swift galley courser that was called in song the Greyhound of the Sea. Our uncle, the McNeill chieftain, stood in the prow, a giant of a man, in mail and helmet that glinted in the morning light, with our dad, his younger brother, tall beside him. Oh, they were mighty. In my refuge, it was all sound without sight. I could just hear surf rolling onto shore and whispering its way back to sea. A bird twittered high above me. Sheep called, one to the other, Connemara blackface that managed to thrive on the shallow soil of Barra. They descended from the lone pair my Irish mother had taken as her meager dowry, though she descended from the ancient kings of Connaught. A squeal resounded, followed by a yell of triumph and another bout of howling. Why was my sister Deirdre always the first one caught? As Mam struggled to teach my sister her letters, I'd learned each one, but Deirdre could scarce write her name, though she was 5 years older. I tilted my head to peer between rocks. The breeze had risen and fog slipped between trees, shimmering and shifting like ghosts. Magic dwelt in our western isles, selkies and pukas and the blue men of the Minch. But we were all christened Catholic, not like the mainlanders who turned to Knox in his Reformation. 2 voices protesting, the twins, who would never split apart, making it twice as hard to find a good hiding place. The wolf gloating, close now. I pressed my back against the boulders, thankful for once that I was small. A branch snapped, and then another, but farther away, voices arguing, howling, fading, and then still. The stream sang beside me, Down from Heval it flowed, the highest mountain on the island. Once my brother Cathal had carried me there on his shoulders so I could peer out into the ocean. I can see the Emerald Isle, I'd insisted. But he said, nay, 'twas only St. Kilda where the men hunted seabirds to salt for winter. Someday I would travel to Ireland and on to Tir na Nog, the blessed isle beyond the mist. Someday I'd see the whole world. A rock tumbled downhill and splashed into the water. Had John Og found me out? I shrank back, eyes clamped shut. Though I held my breath, there came a drawing in of air, then exhalation near a snort. Something was close by and far larger than my cousin, wolf or no. Was our game sin on such a day? And then I heard it. Vigilant and strong, caution and power beating in rhythm, boom, 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 boom. Chest so my heart beat in time. I was bigger now, grown so large I feared the stones around me, scrambling to break free, pushing through the crevice, smashing the heather, ready to run. A horse stared down, wild-eyed, but held its ground beside me, nostrils flared, the perfume of fresh-cropped grass with water dripping from its black chin. Dark as night without stars, front hooves in the stream with a heart pounding just like mine, so I could hear its truth. You mean me no harm, I whispered in wonder. Grown folks say horses are too dangerous for bairns, so I've not been close to one before, but you would never hurt me. I reached out a hand and felt first the prickle of whiskers, then warm breath and nose softer than a newborn kitten. Then it all happened, a roar of victory, the horse rearing up to paw the air with gleaming hooves, my arms snatched and twisted, the horse whirling and disappearing into the forest, John Og's face too near my own. That was my father's finest war horse, he shouted. What were you doing to him? Nothing, I whispered. But it wasn't true. I was listening to his heart. John Og shook me so my teeth rattled together, but I didn't cry. Well, stay away from it, he ordered, dragging me into the woods the other way. You're the last, but I've got you now. He howled in triumph as he dragged me back to the pillar of stone to join the other lambs. I never told anyone what I'd heard, but the rhythm stayed with me for the rest of my days. In the audience, I had the pleasure of sitting right near Elizabeth Woods Darby, and she's our next reader, and she has the best laugh.
Hi, everybody. Oh, got kind of stiff. I just wanted to say thanks so much to everybody here, town of Paonia, and my family. My brother Logan drove 12 hours to be here tonight, and my partner Ben, who's here with me, we're here back in Paonia for about 6 months or so, and it's so lovely to be back and to just kind of get to rediscover Paonia in a totally different way. So thank you guys so much for having me read tonight. I've got a couple of poems here. We'll see how it all goes. The first one is called The Wild Places. In the way off distance, I can hear the wild places hum, like an old familiar song, like the sound of wild water, unhurried, laughing over rocks and stones. The dance and sway of tall, dark trees illuminated against a brilliant evening sky. That smell, dark like old earth, new wind, and fresh pine. Their silence is so big, it pulls like a magnet on me. As I stand in the chaos of hurried dinner plans and other people's problems. The sounds of muscle cars roaring in the street and the wailing news on the radio. My freckled hands always occupied, holding some tiny, busy thing. I feel consumed within the chaos, and yet I am not the chaos, and the chaos is not me. I am closer in texture and size and sound to that wild green hum that lifts off the trees in those undisturbed places left to be wild, to grow brambly and green, naked in the milky light of a new day, unashamed of all its inherent beauty, unquestioned in its deep roots to belong, just as we all are. This one's called Glass. I can put my shoes on. I can walk miles on rocky roads, but beneath the leather of my beloved boots, beneath my brother's borrowed socks, deep in the skin of me is a shard of deep, bright glass that I cannot help but know that it is there. And each sight I lay my eyes upon, each wonder that I walk beneath, that shard of deep, bright glass, its pointed edge, it needles me. So until I stop and take my layers off and find the light or someone to hold it for me, until I dig into the flesh of my own soul and pluck away the thing within that aches to be pulled free, we just go on aching. That little sharp, deep, bright shard of glass in me. This one's called Love. Love glints in the green stones on my left hand. It smooths my fevered forehead. Her callus is rough from milking the goats in the bitter cold. Love laughs, tilting her head way back and letting the mirth bubble up from within her, the delight of this life, too much to bear quietly. Love cries, like the women, the mothers, locked away from their children, their babies, in sterile cells, but they still hear their sobs and little voices calling, "Mama, Mama," deep into the guard-filled night. Love is never just one thing. Love is like our blood, our bones, our bedrock. It is woven into the fabric of our human lives. It is the fabric. And it is there, the thread of it, still alive, still core, when the world grows too wild and stormy with words and hatred and the numbness of our primal fear to remember. Love does. Love remembers. Break, the broken, stabs of the acutest types of pain. Like needles, they numb, but the ache lives on, and on, and on, and on. If I could, pull it out for you. Black sludge all over me, the dog, the floor. I would. And we'd be a black, tarry mess, rolling around on the hardwood, howling, woofing, laughing. Because that big, black, awful mess is so goddamn worth you finally being free. And this is called Ode to Mary Oliver, who's one of my heroes. How many hours do you or I have? Not just that we've tucked away like magpies, but how many do we have in all our cosmic possession? How many golden autumn evenings where the dusk rises blue and smoky against the gilt of the sun? How many nights, black with its liquid rain and worry, pacing up and down the floorboards like fingers over a fragile spine? How many meals, sitting around a table with your parents? How many breakfasts, sitting around the same table with your children? How much time for those important emails, for waiting at stoplights, for a quick cup of coffee, and an hour staring into your phone? How many more mundane moments do we have? To look up and feel the rain on our faces, to stop and look into the person you've sat next to for the past 20 years, and have the courage to look at them with fresh eyes, and let that hit you. Let yourself love them all over again. Tenderly, deeply, new. What if this is it? What are you doing with your one wild and precious life? Thanks, guys. Next up, we have Nina Klaus.
This first poem I wrote at the request of my best friend, Jody Price. Her son, Riker Poor, took his own life. Jody's son, Riker Poor, took his own life last month at the age of 18. And sadly, Riker's incident is not an isolated one, because teen suicide is the second cause of death among teens. So this poem is dedicated to Riker, and it's called Breathing, Praising. A day soft with air and light, below the breathless mountains and sprawling expanses of sky, souls caress the earth. Through twisted juniper and fragrant sagebrush you watch, as they circle together, each covered with a silken shroud. Singing, stitching, singing, stitching. The song opening with the damp navy coo of the morning dove, as they all pull out from their pockets bits of fabric memories, somehow so familiar. Then cries of violins and minor notes escape the mouths as silver strings of praise are threaded through the eyes of needles. Together they stitch the pieces into patterns with diligent fingers, in, and out, singing, stitching, singing, stitching. And as the bits begin to form one whole, the voices rise high into the winds like the seeds of milkweeds, being carried ever closer to your curving ears, somehow so familiar. The voices rise, and the fingers stitch in and out, singing, stitching, singing, stitching. Somewhere in the warbling trill of a crescendo you realize the song is meant for you. They are all here for you. And while they sing this wordless song, they weep. They weep and sing and stitch together the lingering velvets of memories which you so casually left behind for them, with their silver threads wet with salty praises of your life. And as the final stitch is knotted, the song falls sleepily into the opalescent voices of nightingales and whippoorwills, and they all huddle together to wrap themselves beneath the comfort of everything you've left behind, as if to feel the sweetness of your arms embraced once more, or to cloak themselves in the ringing remnants of the laughter you so generously spread. Now, even the most ordinary things have become sacred, though. A sigh, a stretch, a yawn. Their consolation comes subtly from the togetherness amongst your absence. Although they can no longer keep you, a shadow of your beauty still lives through a tapestry of hallowed memories and praise. Something to be passed on and shared into the future. Today, dear one, we sing for you. This poem is called So Do I. It is true, I let you clip my wings, or I may have even trimmed the feathers myself. How willingly I gave away my freedoms for ideas, but the opaque illusions have transformed into transparencies. Seeing this, I have broken nails and flesh, clawing through the darkness to find the heart of myself. Change is hard even when it's for the better. But sometimes, though, change is a force which asserts itself. Like today, how fiercely the brine of the ocean winds blow in this pre-dawn time, billowing beneath the breath of my freshly found wings. How many seconds and minutes have led me to this precipice of life rediscovered? And I know as the sun rises today, so will I. Together we will pull ourselves up. Together we will hold the light. Together we will create a new day. Today the sun rises, and so do I. This last poem is called Starfish. I stumbled upon a shore one night where overcast skies softened a full moon at the time of low tide. And on that shore I saw the flickering silver of hundreds of fallen stars. Perhaps they decided to become earthbound in stubborn spite of being masked by the clouds. And here they landed in moist sands, and I chose me to whisper to them wishes, before casting them back up to the heavens with my hands, or sending them off in white sail boats to unknown destinations. I trotted towards them down collapsing riverbanks, and as I drew closer, the twinkling bits took shapes into small slivers, flip-flopping in desperation. And then I had the realization these were not stars which had deserted their constellations and crash-landed upon the shores. Rather, they were hundreds of small, unscaled creatures. I scooped them up with my hands, pleasantly surprised by the slippery sensation, running towards the waters with them sliding and thrashing between the encapsulating fingers. I tossed them wildly back into the foaming crash of waves. The thought of than the one for life itself. But not least, Diane Sylvan.
I got a lot of teasing about the song You're Sylvain. I don't get to introduce anybody, but I want to do a shout out to Mary Bachman. Where is she?
Yeah.
Such a good writer, and she's so busy doing all this stuff for the rest of us that
she just lets us do it. And I would like to dedicate this to a hero of mine, Ed Marston. He would be quietly pleased that I have chopped it down to a third of its original length. But he would still say it needed some editing, and I'm sure he's right. This is one small boat on the ocean of time. Time keeps passing, and I sometimes forget that it means my time must be passing too. A while back, a young cafe server I didn't know spontaneously called me dear, and then darling. When she brought my salad, she chirped, "There, sweetie." And when I left, she said, "Take care, hon." Well, unless y'all are visiting y'all's people down in, say, Georgia, this is not how peers address you. It's how you speak to children, or to people who are not, shall we say, children. I wasn't offended. She didn't call me Grandmother Earth or Ancient of Days. Yet I suddenly feared I was on the verge of becoming, God help us all, a sweet old dear. I felt old, or rather older. Not that I'm oblivious to the passage of time. I no longer believe good-looking guys are flirting when they smile. I used to preen in joyful ignorance when young men leaped to open doors until they added with insistent politeness, "Can I help you get that, ma'am?" Ma'am. I don't know how it is for guys, but for women, ma'am is surely the anti-Viagra of honorifics. But that's going to change because according to the dictionary, I'm becoming a sexagenarian. And that sounds hot. Getting older clearly beats the alternative, but still. At one Christmas concert practice, we rehearsed with high schoolers. A sweet-faced young guy watched me, curiously intent. Then his face lit up. "I know who you remind me of," he said happily. "That singer." "Which singer?" I replied, running down the list of the most flattering possibilities. "Please let it be rehearse." Bonnie Raitt. Bobby McGee, yeah, Janis Joplin, you kind of remind me of... That's promising, I thought, until he went on to clarify, and this is a true story. "I mean, you remind me of her if she, wasn't dead." And had, stayed alive and gotten old. His innocent enthusiasm. I squeaked out a reply. "Oh, thanks. Chocolate is great." While inside, I shriveled up and withdrew my head deeper into my cracked, withered shell like the ancient Galapagos tortoise I had become. It's not easy being green, they say, but gray has challenges too. I'm not here tonight to complain, though. I want to talk about memory and time and God, all that philosophical flapdoodle. So you might as well get comfy. We could be here for years. The longer you live, you see, the stranger time gets. Hours are longer, but weeks are shorter. Late afternoons, when I'm copy editing some grim account of how my own goddamn species is stupidly destroying the planet, I get stuck in the instant, like a fly in molasses. Seconds freeze, the planet stops moving. I regress to 4th grade, drooling on my laptop, waiting for a bell that will never ring. Oddly, that feeling seems more intense now than it did when I was a kid. Maybe because my present experience follows years of similar long afternoons, trailing after like the track of a snail. You wouldn't think time could stretch out like taffy, but it does. Yet by the end of the week, all those moments smash together like a limousine flattened into a chunk of metal at a junkyard. You wake up Friday going, wow, that was quick. How the hell did I get here? I don't remember a thing. Well, I was born nostalgic. I miss things before they have a chance to disappear. I chase moments like butterflies, snatching in vain. 5 years old, perched on a curb, watching water sparkle down a Spokane gutter while the shadows of the grass grew long and blue on the sidewalk, I realized something is happening. The day is changing before my eyes. Soon my older brother will be home from school. And I knew I was not the same girl I'd been that morning, though she was intact inside me like a seed. That child remains, and I grow around her, year after year after year. Slicing an onion, I think, yes, that's how we are. We grow layers of life, and each one stays coiled inside us, pungent and crisp and distinct. Like our cousins, the trees, we acquire new rings as we grow. Time moves in a vast, slow-moving golden tide, and we are helpless before its beauty and its merciless power. We cast our nets like fishermen into the hours, trawling through time, then haul them up to see what we've caught, spilling out memories like bright silver fish. I marvel at my catch. Do I have these memories, or do they have me? They leap out so unexpectedly, snagged by invisible bait, the scent of lilacs, or a snippet of song from the radio. Last fall, wandering Paonia's root-rumpled sidewalks, in a sudden flurry of leaves, I was 9 years old, scuffling through brown, ragged leaves on my way home after school, hearing the tentative tinkle of a friend's piano lessons as I passed her house. Why did that moment reappear so vividly, so many miles and decades away? Which sidewalk, which person, which leaves were real in that instant? Both moments were true. I saw them clearly. Time's current had simply shifted, and my boat had paused, twirling. I glanced back through the years, then spun around and rode forward again. All time is eternally present, T.S. Eliot wrote when he was younger than I am now. Once my parents were children too, just beginning their own unfathomable lives. They're both dead now, but in dreams I can almost brush their faces with my fingertips, as if I glimpse their boats in passing, as if life and death are no more than islands separated by incomprehensible seas, as if perhaps my dear ones have made landfall in a country I cannot imagine. It is strange to me how tightly we shut our eyes to the mystery of life. You have to turn to poetry and art and music to find any acknowledgement of the possibility that we are more than bipeds in business suits and expensive outdoor gear, hurtling down the digital days, glued to smartphones and driven like dervishes by strange devices and desires, grimly, urgently, fiercely compelled, even in our play. I want to tell everyone, as I tell myself, look around. Yes, we're busy. These boats of ours don't row themselves, but we are not cosmic galley slaves. We have the freedom to ship our oars and look up now and then. What have you caught in your memory's nets today? What unknown stars dance on the horizon? Is that shimmering glow the soft seashell light of new dawn? The islands we pass are filled with treasure. What strange and glorious worlds lie ahead? like it here, in this life, on this planet. Even when young men call me ma'am and carefully apologize for swearing in front of me. I really fucking hate that. Even when I'm yanked awake by sciatica, twanging like broken guitar strings. Even when I'm forced to acknowledge, especially today, that President Donald J. Trump is a thing. Even then, I like it here. And I hope to prolong the voyage. Yet I don't fear landfall. I believe that the sea upon which we float is mercy. And I hope that the island to which we all sail is grace. I paddle through the dappled, delicious, and sometimes difficult days. I look and wonder and pray and praise. As an 8th century Chinese poet said, I am moving all day and not moving at all. I am like the moon underneath the waves that ever go rolling. Thank you.
Amazing. Well, we've had long rides, odes and odyssey, possessions both ghostly and filled with water. It's been a heck of an evening, and I'm so glad that each and every one of you came out to enjoy it with us. One more round of applause for our riders. Go home, get a good night's rest. You got a hell of a weekend ahead. Good night.
Part of the scene that just always brings my memories. Kind of phonetically,